Hello, Flosstube! I'm so excited. Okay, my name is Natalia. On Instagram, I go by Official Mermaids Cove. I've been on Instagram logging my floss. Well, I guess this is my first Flosstube video, but I've been logging my cross stitches and my progress on my whips on there since 2020. And I am planning on going to Stitch Florida this year. And one of the questions they asked is, are you a floss tuber? And I said yes to push myself into finally making my first video. After a year of having my Instagram account, I did create a YouTube channel with the same name, but I have not yet to record or post any videos. So this is my attempt at my first video. I started cross-stitching many years ago. I could not pinpoint exactly when. It's possibly maybe as early as 2001. I come from a family of very crafty ladies. My grandmother showed me how to sew when I was very young. And I remember my grandparents, when they would come to visit, they would always take us to the Dollar Tree. And we could buy anything we wanted. Which was, of course, back when everything, before it was $1.25, everything was $1 or less. And we could each have one thing. And there was a time when at the Dollar Tree you could get small cross-stitch kits, I think by Busoa. These were like 99-cent kits, They were very small, but they were little kits that you could put on little hangers. And I remember working on them. They had like little birds for some of the designs. Some of them had like little messages on them. But those are the first things I can ever remember cross-stitching. And since then, the only thing that I've really worked on were kits. And then when I went to college, I realized there is a huge market out there for cross-stitch. And there are plenty of other things that you can stitch besides kits. And then shortly after that, I found Flosstube. And my mind was blown. I'm sure you know when you first realized how many people were out there that also love cross-stitching, how excited you were. And so for my first video, I'm just gonna do an update of my month for January, of what I stitched that month, and then maybe later on we can go into what I could plan for other videos. So I wanted to go through whips first, but I guess since this is my first one, we can talk about what I bought this month. The only thing I really bought this month was for this project, and it was just more of this color. I didn't have enough in my stash, so I had to go buy Hobby Lobby and buy 2 more skeins. But this is my first project that I really focused on for January, and it's my first finish. I'll roll her up. This is called My Little Minnow. It's stitched on a 14 count Aida that I dyed using some Rit dye. I think I used aquamarine. And the way I dye my fabrics, there's a lot of people who've posted videos. I'm not sure that I'm necessarily going to do a tutorial, but I jar dyed this. So what I did is I have an electric kettle and I heat up some water in it. And then I get a jar and I'll put some salt at the bottom of it. I'll put maybe a capful of the Rit dye, the liquid Rit dye, into it. And then I'll fill it with a little bit of hot water. I'll try to shake that up. And then I'll wet the fabric under the sink. Then I'll wad it up and put it into the jar. And then I'll pour hot water until it fills the top of the jar. And I'll put the lid on. I'll shake it up. I've done different methods. I've used a popsicle stick to try to shake the water up to make the jar, completely consistent with all the dye in it. Sometimes I don't do that, and just to experiment with possibly getting a gradient. But for this one, I just dyed it one color, and that's what I did. And I got this nice teal color. I was very happy with it. And I thought it was the perfect color for this project. I love Autumn Lane Stitchery. They're one of my favorite designers. I'm obsessed. And I'm currently trying to stitch all of their mermaids. Right now, the only other one that I've stitched of their standard patterns is the Curious Mermaid. I, of course, have been obsessed with their Dark Queen series. I've done 2 Dark Queens of the Seas, both versions, and I've also done 2 versions of Dark Queen of the Earth. And I'm hoping, I think they mentioned on the last video they did that the next Dark Queen they're going to be releasing is the Air, Queen of the Air. I think she's already prepared and everything. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping it's going to be released. I think the other releases they've been doing have been in September, but I'm really excited. This was a really fun stitch. It went by very quickly. There's very few colors. There's like 9 colors in total in this pattern. I think total stitch count is around 11,000. It's not, it is a lot of stitches, right? But it's not something that would take you years to finish if you really wanted to finish it. And I think I might have spent like 10 or 11 days. I have all of my stitching progress recorded on Instagram. On there, when I finish a project, I include the fabric that I stitched it on, how I stitched it. This is 14 count, so I stitched it, 2 threads over 1 square. I include if I make any changes. For this one, they call for standard DMC except for the little speckles in the tails, and the hair. Those are supposed to be metallic threads. I didn't use the called for ones. I posted on Instagram which threads that I used, but it's basically just stuff that I've thrifted. I think this one was an Etoile thread from when Hobby Lobby was putting all their Etoile on clearance. The pink one was like a Gutermann metallic. It was a pinky metallic thread. It's not necessarily a cross stitch thread. You would find it in the sewing section, I believe. But I just really liked the pink, and I thought it went well with the pink in the tail, so I used that. And then I also have like this off-brand, it doesn't even have any brand information on it, but it's just an opalescent thin plastic thread, and I overlaid all the white stitches with it. It gives it a nice, it's hard to capture sparkle on the camera, but the jellyfish, you can kind of see it. The jellyfish have this little nice glint to them, and the bubbles up here have it as well. So it just gives it a nice added sparkle to it. And of course the metallic thread is in these, I guess they're supposed to be sea stars in her hair, and in the little speckles of color in the tail, and over here in the little girl's tail. I used a hand-dyed thread from Forbidden Fiber Co. It's called Purple Dandy, or Plum Dandy. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. It is on Instagram if you need to double check any of this. I'll try to do better about being able to say and relay the information on my videos, but I'm kind of just winging it for this one just so I can get it out there, and then hopefully I'll be motivated to make the second one after this. But so this is my first WIP, and I finished it this month. I'm very happy. It was my goal to finish it this month. And next month, well, we can talk about that during plans. But like I said, I am planning on stitching on all the mermaids that they have. And then once I run out of mermaids, I don't know. I guess I'll have to figure something out, because I love everything they design, but I don't know if I want to stitch everything. But there's definitely some other patterns that I've had my eyes on. So if I run out of mermaids to stitch, I might end up being tempted to go ahead and get some of the other patterns. They have a lot of really good, fun to stitch patterns. Aaron is a genius. I love all of his designs, and the colors that he picks, you can't go wrong. I'm not sure if you're interested in seeing the back. I know some people are curious. I'm not the neatest stitcher, but I'm not super messy. Like, most of this is pretty neat. I will say it's not hard to do with something like this. There are a few colors, and I do like to color complete, so it's pretty easy for me to try to keep the back as neat as possible, but by no means are all my stitches going the same way. On the front, sure, but not the back, right? Like, these are up and down, and then you can see some of these are side to side, so I didn't stitch these all the same way, I guess. But if you were curious, that is the back. My next WIP, so these are, the next 3 that I'm going to show you are all kits. These are some kits that my sister was so kind to find. while thrifting. You might have seen some of these patterns circulating on Flosstube. I've seen full coverage versions of the patterns. The first one I'm going to show you is the Wood Sorrel Fairy. But this is a Flower Fairies kit by Designs for the Needle. You'll see the name right here. And these are based off artworks by Cicely Mary Barker. She designed a lot of flower fairies and she had a lot of artwork involving depictions of children and flowers or different kinds of plants. They are so beautiful. And these are actually not fully cross-stitched. They're all printed. I'll show you. So if I open this, this is a kit. Everything comes in the kit. It comes with 2 needles. They have instructions for how you will embroider everything. And it comes with the threads. I kind of have them semi-sorted here. But the fabric itself is printed. And what you will do is it will tell you where to put the stitches in, and you can kind of decide how you want to go with it. If you look closely, not all of this is stitched. I can show you the back to show you which specific areas are stitched. But if you look, her dress is stitched right now, and some of the stitches have been placed in these flower buds here. But they give you different colors to stitch different parts of the design. And I think out of all of the kits she found, I think she found 8 in total. I'm only going to show you 3 today. But they all have varying amounts of coverage on the printed sections of the chart. I think out of all of them, this might have the most minimal. I think for this chart, the only things that are stitched are the dress, the flowers, and then maybe some of the stems and the wings. A lot of the fairies' wings are overlaid with this iridescent floss. I haven't really worked with it yet, but it looks kind of like what I used. It's actually got a little bit more substance to it than what I used for my little minnow. But I'm interested, and I'm sure it's going to make the wings very iridescent and sparkly. So that's how far I got with this. I started this for kind of a Christmas advent. I did 12 new starts. This is the first year that I did that. And so this was leading up to, I think if you're Catholic, you call it the Epiphany. I'm from Puerto Rico. We've just always referred to it as Three Kings Day. Leading up to when the 3 kings, 3 wise men visited Jesus and baby Jesus and gave him their gifts. So I started this maybe the 1st of January. This might have been my New Year's start. So that's how far I got with this one. And it is I believe it's a 14 count. Let me see if the kit says anything. Yes, it is a 14 count Ada. Stitch 2/1. And there are actually other specialty stitches that they have, like they give you instructions to do lazy daisies or straight stitches, French knots, of course, and some other. If the chart calls for other stitches, they give you instructions on how to stitch those. So it's not just cross stitches. It's kind of interesting. So I'm interested to see how we'll get into the other parts of the design. So that's the first one I'll show you today. The next one is called the Forget-Me-Not Fairy. This is what it looks like. They do have numbers at the top for each of the kits. I'm not sure if you'd be able to find them somewhere else. Like I said, my sister found these while thrifting. It seems like some of them, like the last one had a sticker that said Walmart on it. I'm assuming this was quite a while back. I'm trying to see the copyright year on this. It says 1997. So I definitely, if I was stitching around 2001 and I had seen any of these at Walmart, I definitely would have snatched them up. So I'm pretty sure maybe they weren't being sold at that point. But this one has a code. The first one I showed you has a number code of 5506. This one has a number code of 5510. So if you are looking for them on eBay, maybe they refer to it, or some other consignment store, they might refer to it by those numbers. So in this kit, just like the other one, it's like printed on the fabric. And the only thing I stitched on this side, if you can see, is like some of the shadowing of the ground she's sitting on and the backdrop. There's some colors back here. I think there is some stitches on the flower. Let me look at the cover photo. Yeah, I'm not sure if they outline the stems on this one, but they definitely have some French knots for the buds and the greenery that's going to be in the background. You stitch the stems for that. You stitch your wings. It does not appear that you cross-stitch your dress, but I think you do put French knots or colonial knots into the dress to accent those pink dots. And then this, like when I'm talking about the other one had minimal stitching, this has like almost the entire bottom of the backdrop completely stitched in. I'll probably will stitch it like that, but I won't. I think I've been trying very hard not to cover. They printed her signature, the signature that Cicely Mary Barker put on her paintings, on these as well. Well, I don't know if they were paintings, but her artwork. And I don't want to cover that up, so I think I've been stitching around them. There are some charts that ask you to cover it up, or at least the mock-up shows that they covered it up, and there are some that don't, but I've just been trying very hard not to. I didn't show you the back on the other one, but this one, you can really tell which parts I've already stitched if you look at the back. It really is just that shadowing, and then that part of the backdrop there. But yeah, that's as far as I've gotten with this one. I'm looking forward to getting more work done on these. If you look at my Instagram, you'll notice I do tend to try to finish my designs before I start a bunch of other ones. This was kind of like the first year where I impulse started a bunch of stuff during Christmas. So I'm trying not to think about it too much. I'm not one of those people that can have like 30, 40 starts. I'm not doing a whip parade today, so I haven't tallied up all of my whips at this point. I think in my end of year review, I put how many I had started at that point, but I don't. I mean, I started these just beginning of this year, so it's probably gone up since then. The next one is the Stitchwort Fairy. This one, the chart code says 5507, if you're interested in looking that up. Also stitched on 14 count Aida. This one, the front cover shows that like the flower she's holding, you stitch the buds. There seem to be specialty stitches there, straight stitches for the stems, and then you stitch her dress as well as some of the stems of grass behind her. It doesn't show stitching on the wings, or at least I can't tell. Oh, maybe it does. It does seem like there's a little bit of maybe the veins on her wings. You probably stitch with an iridescent thread. But this is as far as I've gotten. I've done stitching on the dress, and that's about it. So I got a pretty good start. I have some half finished stitches right here, but the bottom of her dress is pretty much stitched. For some reason, they didn't have you stitch this portion of her dress. I guess they wanted to keep the details of the folds. Maybe that would be covered too much if you tried to just do basic cross stitches over it, because this is only 14 count. But yeah, so they only had this part of the dress outlined to stitch. And then I think you stitch this top, this sleeve, and I think maybe some stitches in the sleeve before you move on to the flowers and the wings and the grass behind her. I can show you the back. Yeah, you can kind of see. I only stitched that section right there. So that's the Stitchwort Fairy. They're really cute. I'm interested in... So another thing you'll notice if you look at my post on Instagram is I love working on my cross stitch pieces. Once I finish them, I'm not necessarily attached to them. A lot of my stuff ends up getting gifted or given away to my family. I'm not haphazard when I do it. I do try to give it to people who will appreciate it and take care of it, but at the same time, I'm not, when you give a gift, you don't want to put stipulations on the person you're giving it to. It doesn't seem fair, because like once you give it to them, it's theirs, so they can do with it what they will. The next whip I have to show you is this one. It's a dimensions kit, but it's actually a stamped and cross-stitched kit. It's called Wintry Wolf. My sister, the same one who found the flower fairies while she was thrifting, also got me this for Christmas. I was very happy to see it. I love wolves. I think I still have a Janlin chart somewhere that has like a bunch of wolves in it that I've never bothered to start because it is just the chart. It didn't come in a kit, and I used to only work on kits. This is actually the first. I've done stamped cross stitch before, but it was on Ada. This is not on Ada. This is on like a fabric. Let me pull out. Oh, okay. So I separated the colors on this color card. I don't always have to do this, but because there were so many different shades and they were so close together, I was gonna drive myself crazy trying to pick out the colors if I had to over and over by myself. Okay, which one's light gray, which one's dark gray, which one's khaki, which one's... So I have them all sorted on this color card, this floss card. And then I have... This is... Excuse me. I do have some... Take a sip of water real quick. A little more dogging than I usually do. So this is the fabric. I have it mounted onto this frame. I'm not really liking it. I thrifted this, and it's not really doing a good job of ripping this fabric. Well, then this is obviously not as thick as what Ada would be. So maybe that's part of the problem. I'm not sure. But it's like a even weave fabric, but it's not cross stitch. It's like just like a regular like sewing fabric or quilting cotton, and then they printed like where to do the crosses and the straight stitches on the design. Based off the picture that comes with the kit, there is cross stitch, there is some back stitching, and there are French knots, it looks like they are, for snowflakes. I think they're supposed to represent snowflakes. And they're mostly over the wolf, and there are some more straight stitches to like make them look a little furry. The only thing I've gotten to stitching on this one when I did the start was just these stitches down here. They are not the neatest stitches. They look a little wonky. I don't know if you can tell with me holding them up to the camera, but they don't, you know, it's not the same kind of consistency that you would get on an even weave or an Ada. So I'm trying my best. I think, I can't remember if the design says that this will wash out, or if you have to do a really good job of covering those stitches. And I feel like I have, for the most part, and where I have stitched. I think I have covered the print. But so I'm going to try to do my best to do that, just because, I don't know, I'll probably have to read the instructions again, because I don't know if this is going to wash out after all is said and done. So far, I'm enjoying working on it. I do love the design. It's not difficult to stitch, and it's not unpleasant to stitch. I'm thinking maybe I'll probably take it out of this frame. I'll probably have to transition it to something else. I don't have any of the... It is fraying a little bit on the sides. I probably have to either use fray check or do an overstitch on that to stop that, and then see if I put this in a hoop or something, or a Q-snap, because this is not giving me the tension I'm looking for. I've been experimenting more with stitching in hand. Like, I think my little minnow, I stitched that mostly in hand, but I really need some kind of tension for this. But that's where I'm at with this project. I'm not planning on stitching on it next month, but we'll see where I get around to working on it again, because I definitely do want to see the design finished. Okay, the other new start, I think all of these were basically Advent starts, except the My Little Minnow. I had started that before I started all these Christmas starts. And these are only the ones that I started in January. I obviously started some of these before in December. The next one is a Gold Collection Petite Dimensions kit. It's called Midnight Snowman. I'm stitching it on all the called for items that came in the kit. I also thrifted this. No, my sister. My sister found this when she was thrifting, and it was only like a few bucks. But it's really pretty. I've heard that I've never completed a Gold Collection kit. I've heard the petites are a little bit more difficult than a larger design, just because you're having to fit more details into a smaller area. So far, I haven't had any issues working on it. These are all the threads. There's a lot of different colors, but they're not so close together like with the wolf kit, so I don't think it's that hard for me to differentiate. There are a lot of different shades of blue, but I think it's fairly easy to try to, or I don't know, it's easier for me to differentiate between shades of blue than like, I don't know, 10 shades of brown. And it does come with this nice iridescent thread in it. It is Krynic. It's a blending filament 032. So it'll be interesting to see where I use that, I guess. I'm assuming it's going to be in this star and maybe it's part of the snowman. We'll see. The only thing I've stitched so far, if I take this out, as you can see, there's a lot of white thread there. This is the Ada that came in the kit. I think this might be, okay, it says this 18 count. I was going to say 16, but yeah, I guess that makes sense. This is kind of small. This 18 count, and I've just gotten a start here on the snow in the corner here. When I first stitched this, I've worked on kits before. Like I said, this is how I started cross-stitching, but I had gotten wrapped up in like Flosstube and ordering patterns online or ordering kits online, and I got a little out of practice with carefully reading the instructions. This called for 3 strands to do the snow here starting off, and I did thread 3 strands into my needle, but I ended up doubling them up instead of just stitching with the 3. So this was very bulky. I was like, why? I know it's 18 count. I've stitched on 18 count before. It's usually not this bulky. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And then I went back and read the instructions, and I could have just, just have that duh moment. So I went back, I had to unpick all of it, and then I restitched it. And it does look a lot nicer now that I am just doing 3 threads instead of basically 6. Trying to do cross stitches, not half stitches, cross stitches with 6 threads on 18 count 8. I don't know how I managed to stitch with that for as long as I did before I realized my mistake. But this is how far I am with it so far. I'm looking forward to getting more progress. I mean, just look at all those cute animals. It's got the little fox and the birds and the squirrel and that little deer. The designs on Dimensions always look so pretty, but I just don't have enough of their kits. I think I have a few more, but I haven't started them. And again, I haven't finished any of these so far. So I will be happy to have this be the first one, and then we'll see if that gives me enough momentum to start some of the others. So that's where I'm at for that whip. Some of these I've been tracking my stitch count, some of them I haven't. I've kind of just been trying to get a start on them because that was the goal. Those were all of my Advent goals. I think the snowman might have been the last one that I stitched on January 6th for 3 Kings Day. And then the next project I've been working on, if you look at my Instagram, I have already finished this design. But it was such a big hit with my family that saw me working on this and my coworkers that I'm probably going to end up stitching it 2 more times. This is a chart, a design by Stitchman Darcy. Beware, I don't have all of this stitched, but there are some adult language, so if there are children in the room, have them look away now. This is the ultimate Christmas design. Yes, it is a Christmas design. This is based off Die Hard. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. No matter how you think about it, I won't hear any arguments to the contrary. It just is. Just accept it. It's a Christmas movie. And this is how far I am. I've already finished it on this fabric. I had this fabric for the longest time and I didn't know what to use it for. This is only half. It was a roll of DMC fabric and I cut it in half and it was enough to do this design twice. The first one I've already finished and gifted to a family friend. And my mom said that she wanted it as well. So I don't know if this is going to go to my mom yet or not. But I'm doing this one a little differently. The other one I stitched just about everything except it has quite a bit of back stitching. I opted out of that. I did have to outline the block letters down here because some of these are stitched in white. The background is white. It has a sparkly interwoven layer, but it is also white. So it's very hard to differentiate the white and the block letters unless you backstitch them. So I am backstitching them the same way that I did the first one. These are the thrifted metallics that I find every now and then. Ooh. Straighten out the camera. I'm recording on my phone, and the tripod I'm using, I guess I'm gonna have to work on figuring out how to tighten it better. But anyway, so this is the metallic thread that I used last time to backstitch it. I feel like it was the one that I had in my stash that best matched the gold that's already interwoven into the fabric. And so what I did is I just backstitched all of the block letters down here with this, but I didn't outline anything else. The rest of this design, after I finish cross-stitching the background color for the block letters, I'm actually planning on doing with beads. I think I checked the stitch count on this. I'm already at 15%. I'm at 50% now. Oop. Okay, here we go. I'm at 50% now. And I'm still planning on stitching. There's 2 trees on either side of EPKA. And they have like a ornament at the top that's like yellow. I'll probably cross stitch that. But the rest of this, there's like berries for these little motifs. There's snowflakes across the whole top part of this. And then there's a triangle border in red and green. And I'm planning on trying to do it with beads. So for the triangle border around the edges, I'm going to use these 2 beads. I think I got these, I can't remember if I got them at Hobby Lobby or Joann's or Michael's, one of those craft shops. I was out of town when I bought these. But these were the closest green and red that I could find that would match these. And then of course, there's like this lighter green that is interlaid in these bottom block letters. I got this green to correspond with that. And then there's also white that some of these are filled in. And I got these white beads to fill in for that. So after I finish the block letters and the trees, I'm hopefully going to do everything else in beads. I was going back and forth on whether or not I should do the snowflakes in beads, but I think I will. I think I'm going to use these blue ones. These were some that I had bought a long time ago at Walmart. They're not the best quality beads. I'd much rather use these. And you'll notice when you start beading on your designs, you will notice a difference if you start using better quality beads than just the ones that you would find at Walmart or generic beads you would find at a craft store. It makes a difference. But because the snowflakes are not like really blocky, I think it'll be okay if they're a little inconsistent. Because snowflakes are supposed to be like individual and unique, right? So I think it'll look good. But that's where I'm at so far. I'm hoping it's not Christmas anymore, but I'm hoping to finish this. Right now it's my work project, which is kind of tricky because of the bottom. But I think once I start beading, I might have to finish it at the house. Like, it's kind of hard to deal with a bunch of beads at your desk. I'll see. I'll figure out what I'm going to do. But I'm hoping to finish this soon. There isn't a lot of it left. I think for the total design, if you were stitching the entire thing, not including the back stitch, it's under 7,000 stitches. And I'm already halfway there. So I feel like this is something that I could manageably do within the next 2 to 3 months. But that's where I'm at with that right now. Roll it up. And I have a few more whips that I worked on this month. And then I can share with you some of my stitch counts. Oh, before I completely put this away, I'll show you. This is something that I found at Goodwill. Okay. I found this at Goodwill for like a few bucks. But I really like it, and I've been putting smaller projects in here. It says it's a Maggie B. I'm not familiar with that brand. I don't really buy purses. But it's got this cool, like, loop at the back. Probably you can put it on your belt, which is really cool. I'm probably going to end up so I'm going to Stitch Florida this year, and it's my first cross-stitch retreat. I might end up taking something like this, and if I could either interweave it, I don't really wear belts, but if I bring a purse or something with me, I could probably put this around the strap and have it with me. And when you open it up, it's got a little Velcro. It's got a nice pocket here. I have some cheap craft scissors that I use here. It's got a little loop to put a pen. This is a friction pen. I haven't really been using it much, but I have it here if I did need it. I also got some water-soluble pens for Christmas. I might stick one of those in here. That might be better for projects I'm not planning on washing. And if I am working on, this one's okay, but I don't need to mark. I don't need to grid it with the pen. But if I work on another project and the fabric is hand-dyed, I might be better off using this. If it is water-soluble, that might be better for something that I can wash. I'll figure that out. I haven't really been having to grid often on my projects. This has some nice clear pockets. I have 2 of these magnetic cable ties to hold my needles. I have a beading needle on the back here. The other needle is currently in my, as a cross stitch project. I think I've heard that you're not supposed to just leave your needles in there, but obviously I tend to finish my projects. I don't just leave them in there. I'm not in a climate where they're just going to corrode into the fabric. I have found things while I've been thrifting where it seems like somebody put it in the back of their stash, just left a needle in there, and it has rusted through. Thankfully, all the instances I found, it's been at the edge of the fabric, so either I don't have to see it in the final finish, or I can just cut that edge off. Sometimes you have to cut it off because the needle's just rusted and completely adhered to the fabric. But thankfully, I've never had that personal experience with my projects. And if I do put away a project for a long time, I typically tend to take the needles out and, you know, stick them into like a piece of felt or something. But currently it hasn't been an issue. You can move this panel back. It's also got, I guess it's supposed to be a wallet because it does have like little pockets for cards. I haven't put anything in here. I could put, like if I had a hand-dyed floss or something with the card, I could probably stick those back here. If I use floss drops to sort my colors. Right now this pattern doesn't really have a lot of different colors, so I just have them all twisted up and thrown in here. Then it has this. It's like a nice little zipper pocket. I guess I have, okay, so I have another zip cable tie in here. Is this the same? No, the same size. Not sure. Okay. Forgot that was in there. And then I have this piece of fabric. This is actually the fabric that I'm planning on doing the last replication of this design. It's a nice light blue. The snowflakes might not pick up on this, but if nothing else, I can just change the color to like a white, maybe? I'll think about it. If I end up, I'm kind of interested in maybe doing the third design with just beads. That sounds crazy, but if I have, we'll see how much beads it takes me to finish that other one. And if I have enough left over, I might try to do even more of the pattern in beads. And I'll have to, this is a smaller count. That fabric is 14 count. This fabric is 16, or maybe this might be 18 again. It's either 16 or 18, so it is smaller than the 14. Some of those beads are small enough to where I think it won't be an issue, but I will probably definitely have to check that before I move forward with that. But it's a really cute bag. I think it does a really good job of holding on to smaller cross-stitch projects. And if not, you could just use it as like an accessory case, right? Because like I said, it's got a nice pocket for scissors. You could probably put more needles in here or zip it up. Like if you have a needle tube or something, you can zip it in here so it won't go anywhere. And then it has rooms for your threads so they won't fall out. And then again, it all rolls up into a really nice package. And it's really nice and quilted and squishy. I like it. And I thought it was a really good find when I found it at Google. So I just thought I'd show you that real quick. I'm putting back. So I have this rolled up, and what I do, it is bigger than, because I don't want to like fold it a bunch of different ways. I just literally put the roll in there, and then I Velcro it shut, which is probably why the ends are a little frayed over here, but it works. And it doesn't pop open, so. Okay, so the last two whips I have to show you are Gecko Rouge kits. I bought my first Gecko Rouge kits a couple years back. I typically do not tend to splurge on cross-stitch supplies. I will sporadically buy things here and there. Like I said, I like to start a project and finish it. I don't prevent myself from starting another project. If I'm working on a project, I'm not 100% monogamous, But once I start something, I do want to typically finish it in a timely manner. There are some projects that have taken me longer than others. If you go on my Instagram, I finished the epic Pokemon cross stitch. I made it into a tapestry and I gifted it to one of my friends. That took me a long time. I started that project when I was in college, and obviously I got very busy with my studies. And I let it languish for a while, and then I finally ended up finishing it up again. I think back in 2022, and I think I started it back in 2016. So that was like one of the longest projects that I've ever worked on for that period of time. Typically, I try to finish my projects on a more timely manner. But when I had seen the charts on Giga Rouge, I was just, there's so many designs on there, and they're all so beautiful. And I really wanted to try them. But if, they only sell them, they don't sell them just as charts, they sell them as kits. And it's very expensive. Like, I live in the US. They ship from overseas, and I didn't want to have to pay, like, if I'm already spending a certain amount of money on the kit, I didn't want to have to pay extra for shipping, or like, if I was interested in certain kits, I wanted to like make it worth my while and work on them for a bit. So what I ended up doing is, for one Christmas, I decided that I would save up some money, and I bought 3 kits. One of those kits, I finished it the same year that I started it. It's called Give Them a Place to Fly Free, I believe. It's by Aruda Art. If you go on the Giga Rouge website, I believe it's still one of the kits that they sell. It's an owl, and it looks so realistic. Like, there's an abstract part of it where it looks like there's smaller owls flying out of it, but it is amazing. And let me tell you, after I stitched that, I think that was the first time that I tried doing a chart completely in 10 stitch. I think I had seen, well, actually, I don't know if I feel like I had watched Kaylee 10 Stitch. She has a Flosstube channel, and I believe she had talked about that's how she does most of her full coverage, and I decided to give it a shot. I also think, is it Mary Rose Stitch Corner? I love her videos. If you know, you know who I'm talking about. She's amazing. I love her Flosstube channel so much. Put it in the search function, look it up now. By all means, pause this video and go see her videos, because this video is starting to feel a little bit like a mess, but she's amazing. Every single one of her videos, it just makes me feel like I'm in the room with her and we're friends. As the internet can fool you into thinking. But anyway, so they mentioned 10 stitching. I did that design in 10 stitch and I finished it, and it looked amazing. I don't know who at Giga Rouge is doing those charts. I have done other full coverage charts, and like the Epic Pokemon cross stitch, I mean, obviously that doesn't seem like it's difficult to chart because they're Pokemon, like they're already, the images are already kind of pixelated, so it lends itself to cross stitch. But there have been some other full coverage charts that I've tried. I'm trying to think off the top of my head something, and I've played around with charting the software myself. I've seen some of the mock-ups for like Heaven and Earth. Nothing against Heaven and Earth, but I would say I actually have an Heaven and Earth design that I bought, and I put it into Pattern Keeper, so I can see what the mock-up image looks like. Compared to the charting that I have seen for Giga Rouge charts, you get a substantially better image with substantially fewer stitches. I don't know how they manage it. It seems like they have a lot of intention in the way that they chart these things, and they always turn out amazing. I have no complaints. If you've never bought a Giga Rouge kit, I highly recommend it. So I'll start with the one that I've been putting the most work into first. And I can actually, it's in the Q-stamp right now. I have no problem taking it out. The other one I might not take out, just being honest, because it is substantially larger. This has like a total stitch count of almost 66,000. Not quite 66,000, but almost 66,000 stitches. I had not stitched something completely 1/1. So I had started this off stitching 1/1, and I thought I would also give a shot to parking. I'm sorry if park threads give you the heebie-jeebies. I know on some designs they do for me. I do have tons of park threads on this design. But I finished the first row of pages stitching this 1/1, and I will say it looks amazing. Again, look at this beautiful charting. These are dragon horns. This is, the design is Yin Yang Dragons by Jojo's Art. He has a lot of different designs on Gecko Rouge site. They're all beautiful. I was really captivated by this one. I don't know. I'm not sure if this was the inspiration for the design, but I can adjust the camera real quick. I'm almost certain that like this dragon was based off of Konohaku from Spirited Away, the Studio Ghibli movie, and this dragon almost seems like it was more based off Maleficent. And you can kind of, I've stitched enough to where you can kind of maybe make out some of the features. The horns are definitely there. This dragon's going to be like blue and white. This one is more dark purples, dark blues colors here. This is like the nose. This is more of like a Japanese dragon. This is more like European dragon. You can kind of see the eye here. This eye, I think I have to put a few more stitches in it for you to get a lot of the definition here. But so what I started doing is I really wanted to start seeing more progress on this, because the whole reason why I started this, this is on, just as an aside, the fabric that this is on is 28 even count. 28 count easy guide. I think that's easy guide because these are 10 by 10 blocks that the grid is in. I think if it's magic guide, they do 20 by 20 blocks. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me below. But I believe this is easy guide. It's definitely 28 count. I started off doing 1/1. There is something to be said for stitching something 1/1. It definitely feels like it's maybe flatter than design, like the owl design that I did start feeling a little thick and uneven in some places when I was doing 2/1 10 stitch. That one was 2/1 10 stitch on 25 count. I'm not sure if I started off doing 2/1, but I can tent, but I definitely did a majority of that design doing that method. This one, the whole top row was done 1/1. And then I started doing 1/1 down here, and then I decided I wanted to see more progress, so then I transitioned to doing 10 stitch. A lot of this down here is 10 stitch. I will say I don't like having a lot of trailing threads. I don't have having a lot of park threads. I think I'm eventually going to finish these off. It is easier to do some of these like onesie and twosie stitches where it's scattered down here if you do it 1/1, because then you don't have as much bulk when you're traversing those spaces. You're not wasting as much thread, and then it's a lot easier to finish it off. Like I can actually bury the thread either under the stitches that I stitch or into, I'm trying to see if I can find an example where I've done it. Again, I've just started doing 10 stitch again, so I might not be able to find, well, no, here. Okay, I found an example. So I can do, it's not quite a pin stitch, but if you look really closely, you'll notice a thread is buried in the stitch below this one. And that's obviously going to get covered up. Even if it's a lighter thread, it's going to get covered up. But I basically went with the weave. So if the line went across, I stitched in the middle. I basically split that thread, and I went, and it's just one strand. So I did this with one strand. I split that thread once, one more time, and I pulled it tight, and it almost buried it in between the actual fibers of the ground cloth. So it's really well hidden, and I'm pretty sure, I feel confident that it's well secured, and obviously when I stitch it over, I shouldn't have any problems. So that's been working pretty well for me. I'm trying to go with large count colors and then go back down to smaller colors. The largest amount of stitches are mostly the darker colors, and it is mostly in this dragon. I was hoping to do that to, cross-country stitch the largest amount so I could get a good outlining of both the dragons, and then I can do like there's like maybe a couple colors that only have 4 stitches left, but some of them are like on this side and I have nothing stitched, and it's already happened to me a couple of times because I'm obviously traversing a lot of space, and this is a lot larger design than some of my other projects. It's happened a couple times where I have stitched a segment either like one block over, and I've had to undo everything and then redo it. I'm hoping that by doing the large color first, I'll get a good reference for where the other stitches are supposed to go. Everything here, I've definitely placed correctly. But I don't have a lot of stuff stitched on this side, and there are onesies and twosies in here. So I haven't decided what to do about that yet. I might still just go back to doing page for page after I finish some of the larger counts. We'll see where I go. Right now, this sits around 15%, I think, is where I left it. We'll do my numbers here in a second. But I think it's just over 15%. I started this as an anniversary piece for me and my husband. We've been married 1 year. We celebrated our first year anniversary last year. And I have not finished it yet because I was working on other things. I don't have a goal to finish this before our next anniversary comes up, but I do want to finish it, I guess, before the end of the year. I was thinking before the end of March or by the end of March, but at this point, like, there's still over 50,000 stitches in this design. So I don't believe that I'm going to be able to reasonably finish this by the end of March. So right now I'm broadcasting at the end of the year, but I do want to focus on a finish for this one. And they look so good. I want to stitch the faces. I might end up having to stitch it up, bottom up now, so I can reward myself with the faces at the end. I don't know. Decisions. And I can show you, when you get a Gecko Rouge chart, they do let you pick what fabric you'll get. You know, strangely enough, the description card here says 25 count. I know the fabric that I'm doing this on is 28 count, but maybe the thread count for 28 count versus 25 count is so similar that they don't change the amount of thread that they give you. I know I've already finished the black color, obviously. So this is how Gecko Rouge does their charting. They give you numbers, just 1 through whatever. I think they try, and this is another reason why they only sell the kits, is they're trying to keep the integrity of the artist's artwork and their charting, and as like a safeguard from people who, you know, steal patterns, post them online, sell them without the permission of the artist, etc., etc. This is another protection that they use. These are DMC threads. These are just the numbers that Gecko Rouge puts, and they do correspond to the numbers that they give you on the chart. For each kit that I bought, I did buy the actual printed chart because I was thinking I could maybe give them. We'll see. I still have the owl one. I might bring that with me to the cross-stitch retreat and see if somebody wants to take that home with them. I did do the extra step of trying to match it up to DMC colors. I feel like even if I didn't pick the right ones, they're close enough to where you would still get the overall look of what the charting was for that chart. And again, it was beautiful, stunning. Go to my Instagram, you will find a picture of it. My husband is helping me edit this. I can also maybe ask him to put some pictures of some of the finishes I've done, I think, this video. If not, it's another idea for a future video. But these are some of the colors. I have finished some of the colors already. The phone that I'm recording is actually where I have all my Pattern Keeper files posted, so I can't pull it up and look at it right this second. But I know that I finished the black. Okay, here it is. Here's the black. I finished all the stitches with black, and this is how much thread I still have. So I feel like they do give you enough thread. And I can show you the back of this is not neat at all. Like I said, the 1/1 was definitely flatter than what my owl ended up being. I don't know that I would call it neat. If you look at the back, it's definitely thick. I mean, not thick, but I don't know, it just looks a little tangled. It looks like an abstract art of what the front looks like. And it does not, I mean, you saw my little minnow. That it almost seems like a far cry from all of this. I think maybe this section where it's like mostly one color is a little neater. You can kind of see. But even look, I have this. I don't even know. Oh, actually that looks like something I snipped and maybe it got pulled to the back. I thought I just had a hanging thread back there. Which is possible with these. It would be completely normal if you have that on yours. I'm sure I have some of my full coverage cross stitch where I've done that as well. But yeah. So that's what I've stitched so far. That's what the back looks like. And again, like I said, I finished that color and there's still plenty of thread left. So if I did have to restitch a few seconds, which I did, I can't remember. It's for the 1/1 sections, it's almost impossible to like salvage the thread when you have to frog those stitches. So I think there have been some strands that I threw away. I don't know if it was necessarily for the black. I know there were some stitches that I had to restitch for the black and I still had enough thread. So I feel like they give you plenty of thread. If you do need more, I feel like if you reach out to them, they're pretty good about working with you. But I've had nothing but good experiences with this company. So that's the one that I put the most work in. The next one is the biggest Gecko Rouge kit I've bought. I might have overestimated. I think might be the biggest cross stitch I've ever worked on, including epic Pokemon, because this one has almost 250,000 stitches. Just under 250,000 stitches. This is a Game of Thrones, not House of Dragons. House of Dragons was the newest series they released. This is a Game of Thrones inspired chart. It's called Dracarys. It is like an Art Nouveau chart. I'm not going to take this out of the Q-Snap. It is so big, and I have it centered right where I'm currently working on. I got down to the halfway mark on this chart. This is the majority of, this is the background color for most of the chart. I've stitched that all the way down to the halfway mark. This side, I kind of stitched a little past it just to finish this thread. But this is where I'm at now. I stitched the top 2 quarters. It is Art Nouveau style. I'm not going to take it out. If you want to go to Instagram, you can see pictures there. I might see if my husband will insert a picture here. He's going to help me edit this. It has, of course, the ring. And it's got these pretty flame motifs. And then Daenerys is in the center. And you have her 3 dragons. This is Draco, if I'm not mistaken. Then I think... Honestly, I can't remember. I'd have to look at the picture again. But I know Draco's up top. In the middle is going to be Daenerys. And then somewhere in the bottom are the other 2. The yellow one and the green one. I want to... I'm trying... I don't know what kind of stitcher I would classify myself as. But I like seeing progress. And for something this big, I need to laser my focus in to certain parts of the chart. I cannot seem to do that like I've seen other people do it, where they do it block by block, or they do it page by page. I'm apparently incapable of doing that. I do that by pieces of the chart because I like to color fill. So, I've stitched the background. There's still plenty of this particular color in Draco. Or Dracar? Dracar. He has it in his head, down his neck, and I think his body here. As tempted as I am to focus on him, I really want to try to get the ring finished first. And then there's like a solid background here. I'm not sure if I'm going to stitch the solid background and then finish stitching the outer rim of stitches, or if I'll finish the ring and all the flame motifs, stitch the outer ring of stitches here, and then stitch the big chunk of background back here, and then stitch the dragon, and then start on Daenerys. But I'm pretty sure for this year, I might only get to try to focus on this section. I highly doubt I'm going to get to the bottom of the section. I started this last year in August, so it's already been over a year. I don't think I'm making bad progress. I think the percentage is at 25. Oh my gosh, am I really at 25%? I'm telling you, I've never worked on... I think the Epic Pokemon Cross Stitch was like under 200,000 stitches. This is almost 250,000 stitches, like 224,000 and change. Almost 250,000 stitches. This is very big. It is a very ambitious project. There was somebody else on the Gecko Rouge Facebook page that was asking me how long it even took me to get to this far. I am doing it mostly in 10 stitch. I have been experimenting with doing 1/1 in those areas where there are sporadic stitching. I feel like it does save you thread, and it's a lot easier to finish off the thread than if you're working with 2 strands. If I'm working with 2 strands, like I have a lot of these flyaways here that I won't clip until I stitch over the top. But if I'm doing a solid color like this, if I stop the stitches down here... Okay, let me see if I can actually position this in the camera. Okay, you can see it right here. I have this flyaway here. I put it diagonally behind that last thread of ground cloth for when I did the last few stitches. So when I stitch over it, I'll go over that, and then I can clip this thread and keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I can't necessarily do that because these require different colors, but once I stitch over the top, then I can clip these flyaways down here. That's how I do the 2 threads. I'm trying to experiment with ways because I actually really don't like having just ending threads across my project. I like to just see what I've stitched so far. And I have this one that is, you can tell I did 1/1 stitches. It's just 1 thread, probably because there is a lot of sporadic stitching happening down here. But yes, I really like this project. It is on 28 count, like the other one was. The only one that I ordered, I bought 3 kits from Greco Rouge. The owl one was one that my husband picked out. And I gifted it to him when I finished. That was 25 count. I started off with the lower count fabric before I attempted to do 28 count. These are the first projects I've tried doing full coverage on 28 count fabric. It's going okay. Sometimes it is hard to see. I have been trying to use a magnifier. I think if I start another full coverage, I might try out 22 count. 22 count 1/1 is actually pretty good coverage. And I've heard that other people have tried that for their full coverage, and it works for them. I haven't tried it myself for a full coverage design yet. I think it would work for me. I have done 1/1 22 count for a cottage garden design. That's obviously not full coverage, but from what I did stitch from that, I feel like it would work for a full coverage design. We'll see. Right now, I'm trying to finish these first before I start another full coverage design. I do have the Heaven and Earth design pattern. I have not started it. I think I bought it back in 2019, and I was like, yeah, no, that I'm not capable, or I don't have the capacity to start this. Because like I said, when I start something, I do like to see progress. I do like to eventually see a finish. I don't want it to languish for 5-10 years. Even the Pokemon cross stitch one, right, started that in 2016, finished it in 2022 for, 160, 180 stitch pattern. And it was like 6 years in between. So maybe that one did take me the most. But like I said, there was a large gap where I wasn't working on it whatsoever. I typically don't like to do that with my projects. I do like to finish them and have them completed. I like seeing progress as I go. And I'm not one of those people who just plan to work on something for years. Like, if I ever just got a bug and just really wanted to start a stitch in time, or, those huge designs that Heaven and Earth is known for, I would drive myself crazy trying to finish that within like a crazy, unreasonable timeline. I don't think I'm going to. I don't think that's ever in the cards for me. I do have one pattern that I really like by Selena Fanick. It's called Lily. I believe it's still on the Heaven and Earth website. You can look it up. It is a mermaid. Did you guess? I bet you some of you could have guessed that by the name of this channel. I haven't started it. It is very beautiful, but it's so big. We'll see. I have huge pieces of fabric that I have found while thrifting. If I find one that is big enough and I'm able to finish these within the next few years, I might go out on a ledge and try to start it and see how it goes. Mary Rose Stitch Corner, that Flosstube channel, she has mentioned that for some of her full coverage designs, she has found it easier to like tension stitch the background, and then for the more detailed portions of the chart, do 1/1. I might try that. I might try to do 1/1 on the mermaid's face. I'm already trying to make plans for this, and I already said it's not going to happen for like a few years from now until I finish these. So we'll see. We'll see in 3 years from now. By all means, feel free to remind me of these crazy plans I'm making now. Okay. So this was Dracaris. This is where we're at with that. Okay. So I will now share my stitch count. Now, the way that I track my stitching. So far, I've been able to keep track of the stitch count. There are some projects where I haven't bothered. These are my numbers for January. I printed it out. I have an Excel sheet that I track my stitching on. I have been asked lots of questions about this on my Instagram. I have not bothered making a video about how I do this. I will try to explain Now, if you want a follow-up video, I can try to show you. This is not something that I have a good setup for to show you on the computer. Again, I'm not, between me and my husband, I'm not the one who has the technological know-how to just easily find a workup for that. So I printed this out and I'm going to try to walk you through it. So this is my like monthly review. I have what the project is, and I have different types of what my cross-stitch projects are. I put them into different categories. So this is typically what you will see when I post my monthly update on my Instagram channel. I have not posted it yet. This is today is February 1st. I'm probably going to post it after I finish recording this. I'll just snap a shot at this with my phone and go through where my products are right now. So far, for this past month, I had a goal of stitching 17,000 stitches, 17,500 stitches. I met that goal. My total stitch count was 17,853. Total full stitches was 17,491. I don't know if that is completely accurate for this month because, like I said, I transitioned stitching my yin yang dragons from 1/1 to 10 stitch. So it could be, maybe that's not an accurate number. I'm not in any cross-stitch groups. I'm not doing any challenges in which I need to track this stuff. Some people had mentioned that they track it differently, so I just wanted to have the information available for somebody who might have a question about it. I don't know that it's necessarily 100% accurate for this month, just because I made that change for that project. So I can figure out, I track all this in Excel, I can figure out what the average stitches per day was over the month. For each of my projects, I have a line, right? It has the project name, the type. I don't have the designers on here, but I do, whenever I make a post with an update on one of these projects, I make sure to include the designer, the fabric that I'm stitching it on, and what the chart name is. And I will, if the designer has an Instagram page, I will try to tag them so that you can find them on Instagram. For each project, there's a line. I put what the total stitch count is if I have that. If I don't include it. I put a goal percentage for that month alone. I put the goal stitches per month. Some of these just have start. Like I just wanted to start the project. I didn't have a goal in mind. I put what the initial stitch count was at the beginning of the month, and then I have ending stitches for what the stitch count was at the end of the month. It looks like I actually did track my stitches for the Christmas starts that I had. And I have that listed down here. I think the only one that I had with a goal for 100% was the My Little Minnow from Autumn Lane Stitchery. It says here that the stitch count is just under 12,000 stitches. This might not be completely accurate either. I did buy the PDF version of the chart, and I did import it into Pattern Keeper. I don't know if all of Autumn Lane Stitchery designs are Pattern Keeper compliant. I don't think they are. I don't know if they're planning on transitioning to try to make them more Pattern Keeper friendly or more friendly for other tracking apps where you can upload patterns to track your stitches. This one, Pattern Keeper has an option where if the chart doesn't automatically upload, you can try to overlay the grid onto the image of the gridding and track via that. That's what I did. But obviously that chart was not full coverage, but it counts each square as a stitch. So I went in there and tried to backfill everything that is just no stitch area. And I tried to calculate what the stitch count was based off that. That doesn't mean that I am 100% accurate. So I would probably round this, either up or down a few stitches. So give or take, that's not necessarily the exact stitch count for that pattern. In that case, all of my Gecko Rouge designs I've had no problems tracking in Pattern Keeper. They upload very nicely. I will say, I've had the odd, I can't remember which pattern it was. I think 2 out of 3 uploaded with no problem. There was one chart where, because Gecko Rouge has numbers to it, right? They don't have the DMC color. I had to go back into the advanced settings and fix some of the numbers. But it was easy to do. And it still highlights a specific color. The way I had to upload the little minnow design, it will not highlight a specific color. You have to track it stitch by stitch and keep track of what colors are what on our own. But I did have that as a goal to completely finish. I did completely finish that. If I finish the goal for the month, I will highlight it in green at the end of the month. My monthly goal was this amount, and I highlighted it in green because I hit the monthly goal. I hit all of my goals except for my Dracars. I had a goal of 1,000 stitches. I only got 724, but I still hit my monthly goal for stitch count because I was putting a lot of work into my Yin Yang Dragons. So everything is highlighted in green except that one line. I did get stitches into it. I just didn't get the what my goal stitch count was going to be on that. And it is at 25%. I fully finished my little minnow. That's 100%. It says, yeah, I'm at 53.3% for the Yippee-Ki-Yay Darcy design. And I'm at 15.6% on my dragons. Those are accurate stitch counts. The Yippee-Ki-Yay Darcy's patterns do upload into Pattern Keeper. I did not have to do the overlay, roundabout way of putting it into Pattern Keeper like I did with the Autumn and Lane stitch design. And I think the only thing that didn't import was the back stitching, but I think that's standard. I think Pattern Keeper doesn't really track back stitching like that. There might be other tracking apps that do. Like I said, I wasn't planning on doing the back stitching anyway. It wasn't a big deal. But the stitch count, as far as the cross stitches, are accurate for that. So, my Excel sheet, this is the monthly summary, right? But directly below that, as you scroll down, will be the next month's summary. That's how I have my Excel sheet set up. This is the picture that I take for my month-end review when I report it on Instagram. What you don't see is the other half of that Excel sheet, and I will show that to you now. The other half of my Excel sheet looks like this, and it's directly positioned across from the monthly review. On this side of this spreadsheet, I have all the days of the month. Every single day in the month. Excuse me, get a sip of water real quick. So much talking. If there's a holiday, I will highlight that in red. If there are weekends, I will put the background to like a gray color. All of the ones that don't have a background color are weekdays. If it's not in red, what that means is those are typically the days that I go into work. And I know that if it's a work day, this just helps me plan my stitching for the month. A lot of my workday projects are smaller projects. Like my little minnow was very easy to take to work and work on in hand because I'm working on Ada. It's not a design that has a lot of different colors. I could very easily take that into work and work on that. And so every day I keep track of my stitch counts. Typically, and you can see for most of the month, I only worked on one project a day. But there were some days where I doubled up. For example, my Christmas starts, the Advent starts that I had. I worked on one of them each day. What did I do? I feel like I missed count for something in here. Because I did do one. Oh, no. I remember what happened here. I wasn't supposed to start until the day after Christmas, and I actually started Christmas Day. So I started a day early just to make sure that if I lagged behind a day, I still would be able to finish all 12 by January 6th. Gotcha. So that's why there's one gap there. I color code each of the projects that I'm working on. So the Forget-Me-Not Fairy was, I might have said the Wood Sorrel Fairy was the one that I worked on first this month. It wasn't. It was the Forget-Me-Not Fairy. I made it this like bluish purple. Then the Wood Sorrel Fairy was the pink. She has a little pink dress, so I put the background color for pink. The next one was I guess the Stitchwort Fairy. Yes, because her dress was kind of like a grayish. And then the last one was the Wintry Wolf. That one, I was having a harder time getting more stitches in that one because, like I said, it's not like a structured even weave or Ada, and I was basically fighting the frame. I didn't have enough tension. I need to switch that over to something different. And then this blue color was my little minnow. As you can see, I got a lot of stitches in on that. I think this month, if I look at my report over here, I got in, what was my monthly progress? Stitches per month. So I got almost 11,500 stitches. So 11,464 stitches in that project alone this month. I did pretty good. And I did finish it like I wanted to this month. This blue color here was the Midnight Snowman. That was the last project for my advent. And then I focused mostly on my little minnow. Once that was done, then I went back to working on my full coverage Gecko Rouge charts. I worked a bit on Dracaris, and then I worked on the UBKA chart by Darcy, Stitchman Darcy. I had already had that one already started. When I had started the month, it had 2,553 stitches in it. Sorry, no, 2,533 stitches. And I put 1,016 stitches in it this month. So it was already had pretty good progress in. So I wanted to try to put more stitches in that to get closer to finish. This light purple here are my Yin Yang Dragons. I don't know why I associate it with purple. It's really more like bluey colors. But that's the background color that I chose for those. And then this was, the rest of the month was mostly. And you see I doubled up here. It's probably because I worked. This is what I did. That's a lot of stitches. Maybe I didn't do that all at once. I might have worked on this at home too. Because you see here, this is typically the stitch count I get when I take a project to work. I can get it typically between 100 and... Look, some of the Autumn Lane stitchery charts, if I'm using a Q-snap and I have like a good setup at work, I can get like 300 stitches in it in my lunch hour. It's insane. But of course I still have to eat. So typically that's not the norm. But it seems like this day I worked on that project at work, and then I came home and put a bunch of stitches, 10 stitches of course, which is why it's so high, on my Yin Yang Dragons. There are some 0 stitch days on here. I've been trying to have more reasonable goals for when I stitch, and I try to stitch every day. In case you haven't noticed, in January, it seems like everybody got sick. So I somehow came down with strep throat. I don't even know how. I interact with so few people, and I guess I went out in the public sphere and picked up strep throat from somebody. And I ended up having to call out of work, and for 3 days, I could not even stitch. I was just eating, drinking fluids, sleeping. Eating, drinking fluids, sleeping. And then, after I came back to work, I was still kind of fuzzy, but I was, no longer contagious, taking my antibiotics, not running a fever, etc., etc. But I was still feeling kind of foggy. I think at the end of the week, we either got really busy or I just did not have the energy. I was still recovering. And I didn't stitch either. So 5 no-stitch days was definitely more than what I was planning on doing. But that was what ended up happening last month. Life happens. I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm happy for that. So every day, these say goal stitches a day. You'll notice here, so up here it actually reflects the total stitch count. Down here it has 700 set. I think that's what I was trying to root for in between what I stitch on at work and what I get done on my full coverage, considering that I'm doing 10 stitches, right? So what I will do to track this on my Excel sheet is, where it says ending stitches, I actually have a formula in here that will say sum up this column, sum up this column, and I will click and drag whatever cells for the days that I work on those. And that's how I'll keep track of my ending stitches. I have different categories that I put my cross-stitch projects in. I have a full coverage category, a sampler category, a SAL category, a gift or a fancy lady category, and then other. I put all my Christmas starts in other. I put the My Little Minnow under Sal because I was actually, when I was posting on Instagram, I put it to go along with Angela Stitches. I believe that's her Instagram. Birthday Sal. She had a birthday either in December. Yeah, I think it was back in December. And I think that's when I think I had already started it, but I had gotten like a minimal start, and then I started stitching along for her birthday because she had like a beachy, theme, and I mean, it's a mermaid, right? So I had put that under Sal. Stitchman Darcy's design is not necessarily a sampler, but it's about as close as I will get to stitching a sampler. I guess that sounds kind of weird. To me, it has a little bit of a sampler-y feel to it. I don't really stitch samplers. I don't think I've ever have stitched a sampler. I think the closest I got to was maybe the cross-stitch accessories thing I stitched that I found as a full kit when I was thrifting one day. But right now I have that under sampler category. Full coverage, I only have Dracarys. I actually have Yin Yang Dragons under other right now because this column, so right here I could keep track of total stitches, and then down here next to it you see total full stitches and then total stitches. Okay, so it says total stitch count and then total full stitches. So if I know, like the Dracarys piece is mostly half, it's 10 stitch, right? If I know that I'm doing it mostly 10 stitch, I will half that when I go to do my totals over here. So I have formulas here for the total stitch count for everything that I stitched in that day. In that formula, whatever's in this column is halved because I had switched over to doing a lot of my full coverage intent. That's the reason why Yin and Dragons isn't in there, because I had not been trying to stitch that intent, and then I switched back over to doing it just because I felt like I'm getting more progress and I would prefer to do it that way. Next month I might actually put this under full coverage category and have it calculated the same way. Total stitches month to date. That's what that stands for. So it will take into account what I stitched the day before and then what I stitched the day of. And that way it will keep up with the stitch count for the month. Total full stitches month to date, kind of same concept. It does that by summing up the total full stitch column. This does it by summing up the total stitch column from the day before and the day of. And then as you go down, it'll eventually give you your total for the month at the very bottom. I also have a stitch year-to-date column and a full stitch year-to-date column. Same concept, but I will actually track this column all the way until the end of the year. This will only be tracked on a month-to-month basis, so I can track how many stitches I got at that month, and I can also track my stitch count every day. I have this as an Excel file. I have last year done like this. I did the year before partially like this, and I've been making some tweaks here and there for what works better for me, improving on it a little bit every year. I don't have it as just a document that you can use if you wanted to try it out, but if there's enough interest, I might try to create a blank form of this and post it as like a Google Doc version and see if it's something you would be interested in using to track your stitches. Another thing I do for the monthly summary is I do try to get like a screen grab or find an online picture of what the final design looks like, and I'll include that in my monthly summary. It just gives me a good snapshot when I'm taking a picture and I'm trying to post a summary on Instagram for the projects that I actually touched that month. This is by no means all of the whips that I have, but it does show everything that I worked on for this month. And I also sometimes try to put in future months things I might like to start, or again, because I don't really hold on to my cross stitch pieces, everything that I stitch is something that I would be interested in actually seeing progress on. It is either it has artwork that interests me, or a design that I find is really beautiful. But at the end of the day, I'm not stitching these things with the thought in mind that I'm going to keep them. There are very few projects that I've been meaning to keep for myself, and typically, just being honest, they typically remind me of my husband. It's not excuse me. It's not something that I'm thinking of myself most of the time. So when I am thinking about new projects to start, I'm typically thinking of who can I give this to? So I collect charts that I'm interested in and that I think are beautiful. Sometimes I buy them with a specific person in mind, sometimes I don't. But when I go to think about what am I going to stitch on for the year, I try to think of events that are coming up and what might make sense for me to stitch for particular occasions or particular people. That's just how I do it. I'm not attached to my finishes. I know a lot of people are not like that. I like being able to say, I created this beautiful piece of art. Who wants it? I'm not really big in like framing things, having things on my walls. I'm experimenting with framing because I am a very frugal person. I enjoy spending money on cross-stitch supplies, but I also like getting deals on them. And again, I think the biggest splurge I ever did was buying those 3 Gecko Rouge kits at the same time. And I have promised myself that I will buy no more, as difficult as that is, until I finish the ones that I have. There were some Medusa doll maker charts, well, their kits, that I was interested in buying. They completely removed that from Gecko Rouge site. So I missed out on that, because now Medusa doll maker is starting to sell her own charts. But like I said, the charting that Gecko Rouge does, the amount of effort, the amount of intentionality that they put into their charts, so far, from the things that I have stitched, have no comparison. For full coverage. Like I said, Autumn Lane Stitchery designs, I'm obsessed with them. Also, excellent charting. Stitchman Darcy's charts, excellent. But for full coverage designs, so far, the people that have blown me out of the water have been Gecko Rouge. Very enjoyable to stitch, beautiful charting, amazing. I don't know if Medusa Dollmaker's charting of her artwork is going to be the same. And for the amount of time that I would have to dedicate to stitch some of those pieces to get the level of detail to translate, I don't know if I would want to take the risk. And there's also plenty of other charts that I have that I haven't started yet, that are probably going to be started before I even think about doing something like that. The other design on Gecko Rouge that I would really love to stitch, I've done Naruto art, I've done Joe Jonas, and the Dracarys part, I didn't say who the designer, well, the charting is done by Gecko Rouge, but the artist was Dalen Ogden. Amazing artist. Follow them on Instagram. They post stuff all the time, and they have several pieces on Gecko Rouge, and I think one of the other charts they have there is based off Howl's Moving Castle. Beautiful. Again, I promised myself I would not buy anything else until I finish these. But I can't do it. It'll drive me insane. And I'm also interested in trying out other companies' charting for full coverage designs. Like I bought one of my Christmas starts was a Grinch chart from Charting Creations. Charting seems beautiful. Downloaded perfectly into Pattern Keeper. I haven't completely stitched it though. That's the only thing. I have completely stitched a Gecko Rouge, the owl. I haven't completely stitched from Charting Creations yet. Once I do, I can give a review on that. But so far, it's looking good. I also have my eye on a mermaid chart from Tilden Crafts. If I finish my dragons, I will give myself permission to buy it. And maybe start it for my birthday. We'll see. I'm still thinking about it. I've been having my eyes on it for years. And I just haven't pulled the trigger yet. But it would be my first chart from Tilden Crafts. And I always see Almost Little Wonders working on them. And they look beautiful. So I am very interested in buying a chart from them and trying out their charting. And they keep adding charts that look so very nice and beautiful on their website. And I have to remind myself not to go on there because I will be tempted. And I can't afford to be tempted. I have other things that I want to get progress on. So, that's my first attempt at trying to explain my Excel sheet. Again, this is basically how it's laid out in Excel. It's this side first and then this side. And it basically just scrolls down until you get a full year view. I'm going to have to remind myself to add an extra... Well, maybe not, because I did put... No, I'll have to make sure that next month, because this is a leap year, I do have that extra day for February. So I'll have to put a note to remind myself about that. Okay, so I've showed you all my whips. I have explained my Excel, how I track things, how I track my stitch count in Excel. If you have additional questions, feel free to add them in the comments. I will do my best to explain. I may also try to add this, because I've gotten a lot of questions about it on Instagram, so I may try to add a specific reel to Instagram to try to have a more coherent explanation. I feel like I've been going everywhere in this video to answer some of those questions people have about this. And if there is enough interest, I'm not promising anything, but I could potentially try to make a Google Doc version and make that available if you're interested in trying to use this as a method to track your stitch count. So, now that we're done with that, I'm going to talk about plans. So you're not just staring at nothing. I will put this down. You can look at my pretty finish. And we will go over plans. Next month is Black History Month. What other events do we have? We have Valentine's Day. We have President's Day. We have some things going on next month. I'm not planning to have... Oh! Chinese New Year. Chinese New Year. Yes, I am planning on having a start for Chinese New Year. I can show you that. So, I finished this mermaid. So, of course, I have to start one of the other ones from Autumn Lane Stitchery. The next one that I have my eye on is called Beauty and the Beast. I'll see if my husband can insert a photo. If not, go on their website, go on their Instagram. You will see it. It is beautiful. It is a mermaid and a sea dragon. And since this year is supposed to be the year of the dragon, that is what I'm going to start for Chinese New Year next month. Or, well, this month, because today's the 1st. I hand-dyed this piece of fabric with my sister. The called for fabric, I can't remember. But it's like a dark gray backdrop. Kind of solid, a little molded. Or mottled. Not molded. Mottled. But we had this piece of fabric that we had experimented with. It does have a mostly dark gray color to it, but it's got these nice splashes of like color to it, and I thought it would look really cool, like if they were doing like undersea magic or, you know, under the sea coral colors, or maybe the bioluminescent fish, because it does seem like they're deep in the ocean where you might encounter a sea dragon. And so basically the dragon is like coiled around the mermaid, and she's like lovingly giving it a caress or a pet, you know, giving it some affection. And she has like pearls wrapped around her midsection and her tail and some bubbles. So I think it would look really cool on this fabric. I believe this might be either 16 or 18 count. Next time I'm gonna have to bring a ruler or something. I should know after I start this what it is, because I'll measure it and I'll make sure to document it on Instagram. Again, if you ever really want to know what all this is stitched on, I use Instagram as my tracking tool. I typically have all the details on there. Once we put this video up, it'll be pretty easy for me to copy and paste what I post on Instagram into the description of the video. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. I'll try to do a better job of writing it down so I can tell you in the video. So this is probably going to be my next start. I don't have a date for when I'm starting it. I might wait and see if I can start it after I finish the current pattern I'm working on for Stitch Mandarshi. But I already have it done up. I found all the colors of floss in my stash, and I have it on a floss card. These are all the pretty colors. I think the only thing I have besides this, oh, those 2 threads that I bought weren't for my little minnow. It was for this, because it said that it requires like 4 skeins of this color. So I had to grab a few more from Hobby Lobby. It's on my way home from work, so it's the easiest place for me to go and pick onesies or twosies up. I do have this black Atois thread. I really like, I will say this, I have not stitched with all the sparkly metallic threads that are out there. The DMC thread, if I had to choose between the DMC metallic floss and Krennic, I would prefer to stitch with Krennic. If I had to choose between Krennic and Diamond, I would still prefer to stitch with Krennic. I don't know how you feel about that. I don't know if you have an opinion. I've heard people refer to both or any metallic thread as demon thread. I would highly recommend you try out the Atois. The Atois thread that DMC came out with stitches up almost as if it's just regular cotton thread. I still wouldn't cut longer. Like maybe this piece would be adequate. That's maybe 12, 14, 16 inches. And what I do is I typically double up on it. So I'm actually, stitching with a shorter length. But it's almost like stitching with regular cotton floss. It is beautiful and very easy to work with. And it does give you a very nice sparkle. If you don't want to try this, or maybe you don't have any in your stash and you're just working off your stash, I understand that. I'm frugal. I like to work with what I got. If you're having issues working with metallic thread, another alternative would be to use a cotton thread that matches the color and then overlay it in the metallic so that you don't have to try to stitch the full cross in the metallic. It's a lot easier doing a half cross than it would be trying to do a full cross. Shorter links helps a lot. And another trick that I used when I was stitching Curious Mermaid and I wanted to put metallic in her tail is I actually made I kind of made cording. If you look at my Instagram, I'm telling you, like, if you go in there, that's basically a record of everything I've stitched. And I think I included a photo of what the cording ended up looking like. But it was like a red metallic that I had in my stash that I basically twined around a cotton base. And it worked very nicely. It held together, which is why I think I prefer Kreinik, because the Kreinik metallic braid is a braid. It is entwined together. And it holds up a lot better than like the DMC thread or the Diamant, if I'm being honest. Diamant, I have used it sparingly. It does give you a nice shine. It is a step up from the DMC metallic. I would say it's still not as good as Kreinik. And I would actually prefer, I know that they've started calling for using like number 4 Kreinik, number 4 braid, or Petite Treasure braid. I actually prefer using number 8 Kreinik braid versus using Petite Treasure braid. I actually think it is superior. I find it a lot easier stitching with it. And if you use number 8 braid, which a lot of the earlier memorabilia charts will call for instead of the number 4, you only have to do 1/1 on 14 count. I'm not sure if you're doing, like if you're stitching 2/2 on 28 count, same as 1/1 on 14 count. If you go down to the 16/32 count or 18/36 count, it might be better for you to use the number 8 braid. I typically stick to 14 count / 28 count when I'm working with memorabilias, and they call for those metallic threads because they also call for beads, and the beads don't get as crowded if you have a lower count fabric. But yes, surprisingly enough, I prefer to work with the number 8 Kreinik braid if I have it, if I can find it. I don't have an LNS near me. I have a needle workshop an hour and a half away. They do not have everything that I'm looking. Half the time, it's almost better if I order on 1-2-3 stitch, but it does limit my ability for hand-dyed threads. Sometimes if I want to look for a specific hand-dyed thread, I will go to the needle workshop for needlepoint. That's an hour and a half away. Very sparingly. I've gone there maybe 2 or 3 times last year, so it's not often at all. And it is only in the case that I'm looking for a hand-dyed thread. Okay, so I just went on a tangent about metallics. But yeah, so I think overall, that's my plan for next month. To start this for Chinese New Year, try to finish the Stitchman Darcy chart first. The beading, I'm anticipating will go a lot quicker than just stitching it. When I do beading, I just do a half cross with 1 strand, cotton thread matches the background. DMC floss, or you can use off-brand as long as it matches the background fabric. Best thing I found when doing beading, in my experience. For future videos, I'm probably going to try to stick to doing monthly updates. I know I try to do that on Instagram, so I think it'll be good for me to sync it up to try making monthly update videos. If I have a video in between we'll take it as it goes. I'm not going to promise anything, but at least minimum, I'll try to do monthly updates. I want to do a whip parade. I obviously didn't do a New Year whip parade, but I don't want to wait all the way until the mid-year to do whip parade. So I might do an end of the quarter whip parade. So at the end of March, I might do a full whip parade of everything that I have in the works. Whether I'm actively working on it or I have it waiting in the wings to work on for a certain month. Other than that, you tell me. Put in the comments anything that you're interested in seeing, looking at. I do have, even like I said, I give a lot of the things that I finish away. There are some that I've held on to because I have memories associated with those projects. Like I have a project where I spent the summer with my cousin and I stitched this while I was visiting her, so I held on to it and I still have it somewhere in the house. If you want to see that, I can show you that. If you wanted to see some of my finished projects, I'd probably have to insert pictures. So if you're interested in that, give me some feedback in the comments. I will work with my husband and see if we can figure something out. If you're interested in seeing a video like that. If you're interested in seeing a stitch with me, I'm still trying to figure out this tripod situation, but I can try my best to put something together so I have something to show you. I can show you how I stitch. I can try to do one where I stitch in hand, and I'll have to figure out if I'm going to do it with this phone or a different phone, because I do have my pattern keeper on this phone, and that's where I typically track my stitches. I could do a beading video because that's already outlined for the Stitch Man Darcy pattern. So I could just do a stitch with me where I'm beading the inside of those letters, and then I wouldn't really need the pattern. I would just need to know which colors go into each of the letters. Okay, you let me know. Put it in the comments. If that's something you're interested in, that could be something I could record. If you have any other questions, I know there are tags out there. I'm not necessarily interested in answering a bunch of random questions about myself. If you have specific questions, I will try to answer them in the future videos. I will put a question answer segment somewhere, and I can go through all the questions that I've gotten before recording the next video. If there is a specific video you would like to see, I've talked about beading, I've talked about metallics. If you want to see me using them, I do have some mirability charts that I want to start later on in the year. I don't think I have any that are currently started that I could demonstrate with, but I could do that later on in the year. Or for this pattern, if I decide to use metallics other than the blacks, I can go into my stash and see if I find something, and I can show you how I do that. But give me feedback, and I might be able to record some smaller, shorter videos in between the monthly updates. Okay, I did it. We're at the end. That's all I had planned to show you for this video. Wish me luck. I will try to get my husband to help me edit this, maybe put an intro, an outro, and maybe insert some pictures of what my whips are supposed to look like once I get more progress or once I finish them, so you can see what the end goal is. I hope you have a good day. I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and hopefully I continue to make these videos. But I did say I was a Flosstuber, so I at least gotta have something up before I end up going to the Stitchy retreat, right? So you have to hold me accountable, right? Hopefully that'll be enough. Okay, bye!